The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to the presentation and webinar today, Turning Prospects into Managed Services Customers. The presentation today will be done by our industry expert, David Stelzl. And David has been a strategic advisor and has been in the business for about 30 plus years. So he understands security. He's been a business coach, consultant, and a speaker at multiple conferences. He has also authored 4 books. Most recently, The House and the Cloud was republished. And he specializes in data security, sales, and marketing strategies. So that's really the topic of our focus of our topic today. So we will start out by having Dave spend about 30-35 minutes talking about the security sales program, how to master it, how to be effective in selling security, and his experience over the years in making that happen and to make it very effective will be discussed today. And I will spend some time. My name is Anupam Sahai. I'm co-founder and president of the company, and I will spend some time on Aegify to describe how Aegify automates and provides a complete, comprehensive solution for security, risk, and compliance management. And then we will talk about the sales program and how you can benefit from all the sales training and by becoming a partner of Aegify. So a logistical note, if you have any questions or comments during the course of the presentation, I would encourage you to go to the questions section of the GoToWebinar panel, type in your questions, and we will pick it up at the end of the presentation. With that, let me get started. So firstly, before I hand it over to Dave, I just want to highlight and show you a graphic which I find very, very interesting. And interesting because it depicts the latest state of the cybersecurity breaches that are happening on the internet. And cybersecurity breaches have really gone through the roof in terms of occurrences, in terms of impact, and the extent to which these are affecting businesses today. So the reason being that cybersecurity hackers are very organized. Sometimes they are groups, sometimes they're sponsored by nations, and they have very advanced tools to break in and steal information. So security as a topic, security tools and solutions as a topic is very, very pervasive. It's the need of the hour, and to find a good solution that your customers might be looking for is very, very compelling. So what you see here is a depiction of the companies that got breached. The size of the bubble shows you the extent to which the number of records that were breached. So bigger the bubble, bigger the number of records that were breached. And by the way, per record, the cost of a cybersecurity breach remediation per record is anywhere between $150 to $200. So you're talking about hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars worth of property, intellectual property or personal information that's being stolen here in the underground market. And there's a big underground market for health information records, for credit card records and social security information, et cetera, et cetera. So as you can see here, the frequency of very large breaches are pretty frequent. So you had Anthem, you had Primera recently, JP Morgan Chase, and the bubbles are getting bigger by the day. This is a timeline which shows you the current timeline versus in the past. Now, earlier the breaches were smaller in number, mostly one or two large ones, but as we get into 2015, the situation is pretty grim, and businesses are looking for an effective security solution to be able to combat the cybersecurity threat that's upon us. So with that background, let me turn it over to David, and he will take us through his knowledge and his insights into how to be effective in selling security. Go ahead, David, please.
Okay, Anupam, can you just tell me if you can see my slides?
Yes, I can. Okay,
excellent. Thank you. So, the question, of course, is how do we turn this into business? And those of us who are in the technology space, that's the question we should be asking. In fact, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal just this morning. Steve Norton actually was reporting on some of the statistics coming out from Gartner Group. And, of course, I think everybody's aware of this, but I was just talking with someone this afternoon. It's easy to sort of minimize the impact that the cloud will have on the technology reseller business. If you look at how your business shapes up and where your money actually comes from, a lot of it comes from hardware sales, hardware implementation, and what he was writing about this morning is Gartner Group's recasting of percentage growth in the technology market and seeing actually a decrease. It was projected to be an increase of 2.4 or something like that. Now it's a decrease of about 1.3. But if you call in the mid-market and the small market, SMB business, I think the impact is much greater than 1% of your revenue. What he was saying is that companies are going to hang on to their equipment. They're going to be using software as a service. They're moving to the Microsoft 365. They're moving to CRM applications that are in the cloud. And I don't think there's going to be tons of Microsoft support business, fixing computers, selling servers, selling disks, that sort of thing in the future. And so everyone's going out and built a managed service solution. Everybody has one. Now, I work a lot with companies in a coaching capacity. I do a lot of security and sales training with organizations, and I'm working one-on-one with these salespeople, and I'm hearing what they're doing. And so it kind of brings me to my first slide, and that is that people don't really answer the phone. You probably already know that. If you're in sales and you're reporting to a sales manager or somebody in some sales management capacity, you're probably still being asked to make cold calls. But I don't have any coaching clients, and I haven't had any for several years at least, that are really being successful. And what I mean is, what's your conversion rate? So just this week I was on the phone with a guy, and he's new in his company. He's trying to reach out to the market, and of course I'm fine with whatever you do as long as there's a high conversion rate. So I asked him, so what are you doing to find new business? And he said, well, I'm making lots of calls. And I said, well, how many calls are you making? And he said, well, I'm making about 100 calls a week. I said, okay, well, how many meetings are you getting? He said, maybe 4 a month. Now, this is bad, right? This is 400 calls, 4 calls a month, 1% conversion rate. Now, I didn't say that, though. I just said, well, how do you feel about that? He said, well, not too good, but I hope it improves. Well, how much can improve? Let's say it doubles in its conversion rate. It goes to 2%. Is that going to be good? What if it quadruples? What if it goes to 4%? Will you be happy at that point? And of course the answer is no. People are resistant to the sales process, and particularly in that mid-market and small market. They don't want to hear your presentation. But there is a way, there is an opportunity, and what Anupam was just sharing with us is there is a major need out there. But it's not as simple as just walking in and saying, hey, we do security, and everybody's open arms, come on in, we want to buy from you. It doesn't happen that way, and you probably know that right by now. So I want to share with you, I wish I could share with you all day, but I don't have all day. So I've got about 30 minutes left here. I want to show you a piece of some of the things that I'm teaching out there that is getting results, and getting significant results, actually. This all comes, by the way, from a book I wrote, which he mentioned, The House in the Cloud. This is the second edition. If you do have the first edition, it's a complete rewrite. I didn't change a few things. It's twice as long as it used to be, and it addresses things like the Internet of Things, the cloud, bring your own device, and all that sort of stuff. But what it really does is show you how to sell security, how to market it, how to sell it, really both. And it's applicable to large companies and small companies. And it plays right into a lot of what Aegify is providing here, which is kind of how we got together, in that I was out doing this, and some people said, hey, you need to talk to Aegify, because what they're doing plays right into what your message is. And this message has been converting. I want to just share with you some quick metrics. Over the last 10 years, and I'm just using this as one example of lunch and learns. Probably a lot of resellers do lunch and learns. Most of the people I'm working with are doing them on a periodic basis. And so I always ask, well, what's your conversion rate? Just like the phone call, what's your conversion rate on lunch and learns? And I usually hear, well, pretty good. But then when I ask for real numbers, how many appointments, how many sales, suddenly people don't have those metrics, or maybe they're afraid to share them, but they're not there. I want to tell you that the message in the house in the cloud has been converting 75% of the attendees of a Lunch and Learn. And those attendees tend to be all executive audiences, because in the book I explain how to get executives to the meeting. Now, over the last year, our percentages have actually gone up. So people have said, well, do Lunch and Learn still work? They do. Now, it doesn't have to be a Lunch and Learn. It could be a webinar. It could be a one-on-one meeting. It could be anything, as long as there's a conversion rate and the message is good. But the point is, over the last 12 months, my conversion rates on this message have been about 90%. I did a meeting 2 weeks ago with CIOs in Boston, an 89% conversion, all new logos. Conversion to what? Conversion to an assessment, and I will get into that in a little more detail here as we go along. The focus here, though, is not about Lunch and Learns. It's not about assessments. It's how to convert people. How do we convert people from prospects, new logo business, into customers? How do we get to decision makers? How do we demonstrate a need? How do we close business? That's what this is about. And security is a powerful message. Now I want to show you something here that I started looking at maybe 20 years ago, maybe a little bit longer than 20 years ago, actually about 20 years ago. And actually it was when Jeffrey Moore came out with Inside the Tornado, if you remember that book, 1995. And he talked about the normal distribution of technology and how products evolve through the market. And basically what he said is, you've got different groups. You've got the early adopter, the early majority, the late majority, the laggards. That's what I don't have them written in here, but that's what the little white lines are. And he talked about how a product like discontinuous innovation, like you're riding horses and then you move to cars. Obviously none of us were around for that. But a car is a discontinuous innovation, right? I mean, to get rid of the horse and drive a car was a unique thing and very expensive. And of course, there was a few people who bought one. But over time, there was a larger majority market here. The early majority started to look at that and say, hey, this looks pretty cool, and there's infrastructure being built, and they began to buy those things. And then the mass production started, and the late majority started looking, and the price started coming down, and there was a used car market, and these people started buying. And then, of course, eventually you had to have one, to get from city to city to work, you can't ride a horse on the interstate. So, you just need a car. You got to have a car. And that's kind of how it works, for product. But in the technology space, if we look at history and technology, and I'm talking about, from the, say, early 80s until now, we've seen a number of discontinuous innovations come through. And what Jeffrey Moore says is that when they try to go from the early majority to the late majority, there's this kind of chasm, and he wrote Crossing the Chasm was one of his books. And he talks to manufacturers about trying to get over that hurdle and get here. Well, the point I want to make is that in all that, if we look at all the technologies that have come out that are discontinuous innovation, whether it's putting a PC on the desk, moving to networks, moving to VLANs, if you remember that, if you remember, taking everything out of the data center and putting it into the NOS, if you remember that, or moving to the Unix system, high availability computing, these are all waves that happen every 5 to 8 years. And what we have are resellers that are built around, for instance, networking, and they are moving to the middle of this curve as the manufacturer has to commoditize that product. And that's exactly what happened in the car industry, except it took many years. Today it takes a matter of months. Look at tablet sales. Look at iPhone sales. It just takes a few months. And if we look at what resellers have done, they've gone back and they've reinvented themselves. Okay, we're going to focus on voice over IP, let's say, in the year 2000. And, 10 years later or 5 to 8 years later, that thing commoditizes, and that company has to restructure into something else. And we've been doing that over and over and over again, and some companies make it, some don't make it. But the point is that now that commoditization is actually going faster, and the products are getting cheaper. You can't make money selling tablets and iPhones. The applications used to be very expensive, customization implementations, and there are some of those, but there's a lot of apps, 99 cents, right? And so now what Gartner Group is saying, people are going to hang on to their older technology, the new technology is in the cloud, and that puts us in a very precarious business financially. So what are we doing? We're trying to make it up with managed services. However, managed services is quickly commoditizing. Large companies can monitor stuff all day long much more efficiently than you can, and they're going to take that business. And, of course, I've talked to a lot of the guys I'm working with now, and they're telling me when I get there, they just want to know how many dollars per workstation. It's down to a price sale, just like the product. Well, there are 4 things that you can sell that create value, create a value proposition, and they all fit into the project side or the strategic side of this graph. From there, we can drive through to product install, and then we can move into a managed service. But we need something compelling up front. It used to be that discontinuous innovation, we can optimize your organization. Well, you know, a lot of the stuff out there today is just a commodity, and it's very difficult to do this. But there are 4 things that buyers still buy, and here they are. The first one is if you can show them a clear return on investment, they'll buy it. The problem is you probably can't because it's hard to show that if you buy this router, this switch, or this disk, that there will actually be more money on the bottom line at the end of the day. And we're talking about working with a CFO here and showing them on their financials. It's hard to do, and most salespeople can't do that. There's the idea of building efficiencies into the business, and of course that can work. A lot of managed services are sold on an operational efficiency, but it really has become a price sale. There's competitive advantage. Competitive advantage is still a hot one. In fact, I see it growing. It's probably one of the ones you would want to be involved in. But you need to be involved in the application space to do this. And if you're not involved in custom application, we're talking about Java code and things like that that create that user experience that you get when you go to online stores, that's competitive advantage, and that's how it's being built today. The last one, though, and the most powerful one, is risk mitigation. If you can truly help someone lower their risk, you can convince them to buy something. The problem is you've got to show them they have a risk, and this is what they need, this graph right here. So I mentioned a couple of weeks ago I was in Boston, right? And we had 20 CIOs, maybe a couple of CISOs were in the room too. This was mid-market. I do these with small business too. Usually those are business owners. I've got one coming up in Chattanooga in about a week. And we've got, I think, 29 people signed up for that. It only took us 3 weeks, by the way, to get 29 business owners using the right message. So we don't have time to get into what that right message was, but it was security-related, not storage, not voice over IP. And this is the first slide that I show them when I do the presentation, the one that converts 89, 90%. It's the impact likelihood graph. And what this graph shows is the thing they need to know if they were to make an investment. And here's what it looks like. There's an impact if something bad happens, like server goes down, somebody gets to their data, whatever it is. But the question is, what's the likelihood? Now, all your competition out there, and they are, whether you know it or not, they are all selling on impact, and you might be too. In other words, if this goes bad, you're going to need this. You've got to buy our managed service because this could happen. But the question is, well, what's the likelihood of that happening? So if you tell me that the impact of, let's say, getting cancer is really bad, I'm going to go, yeah, it's really bad. And then if you say, well, you need to change your whole lifestyle and take these vitamins and do these exercises and all this stuff, I'm probably not going to do it unless somebody that I believe shows me that my current lifestyle has a 90% or an 80% likelihood of actually having that problem. If you don't do that, I'm not going to take the leap and change my lifestyle. This right here is the key to selling security, and it's what the House in the Cloud and all the things that I teach cover, how to use this to convince somebody. Now, let me show you something else that's happening out there, and that is kind of a transition in what the person who's over IT is having to think about. Now, in a bigger company, this could be a CIO, but in a small business, it could be the CFO who oversees IT, or in a really small company, it could be a business owner who, has an IT person or maybe outsources it. But there's someone at the top who's thinking about technology, and here's what's going on out there. It used to be an operational job. Is the server up? Is the storage full? Is the memory, overused, thrashing? Are our backups taking place? These are all operational issues. But now technology is becoming a growth factor. In fact, on the old day, we were looking at what technology to buy, what the employees need, et cetera, et cetera. Today we're not. Today we're looking at customer interaction. We're looking at branding. We're looking at selling. We're looking at automating the process. So think about Starbucks. When I was talking to a guy yesterday on the phone about, he's in the application business and he works in the security space, and we're talking about being a Starbucks customer. So I said, are you a Starbucks customer? And he said, yeah. And I said, do you have the Starbucks app on your phone? And he said, no. And I said, well, you're not a Starbucks customer, because if you were, you'd be carrying one of these with the application, and it tells you how many points you have. And you kind of get bought into this thing because they're constantly, it's like they're building a club that I'm in, and it kind of glues you to them. You don't want to go to Caribou or whatever, because you want to get your stars. You want to be a green level and then a gold level, and then you want to get your reward and all this stuff. Maybe you don't, but a lot of people do, because that place is full every time I go into it, and we have tons of them in my city. They're all packed, right? This is what every company's trying to do. Think about Amazon.com, and think about how Target and Walmart, who used to be high-growth companies, but they are struggling. And they're changing their model, and they're doing all kinds of things because Amazon is eating their lunch. And how are they doing it? They're doing it with technology. That's what this person is having to think about, whether they're in a little tiny company or they're in a big company. Now, while they're doing that, they have all these things that are hitting them, the cost of technology, compliance issues, the people that know how to do it, talent acquisition, the competition and what they're doing, and then, of course, data security. And they've got a bunch of end users that are trying to figure out how to use the cloud, what apps to download. They're doing it on their own device. Big data analytics, what do we do with that? Mobility, I want to use my own stuff, social business, to interact with everybody, and it's just like a crazy thing out there. But it is totally changing the security market. What our job is to get in there and find the urgent needs that are emerging because of this. Now, here's a compelling thought, if we could sort of think this way. If we could start to put some things together here, the marketing and the selling and the consulting that help somebody. Most of the sales efforts I see out there are a salesperson making lots of calls trying to get somebody to listen. That's what selling always has been about. It was a numbers game, a lot of people said. It's not. Marketing is the science of getting somebody to look, to get them to see the need, and then to get them into a sales process that has a conversion rate. And that marketing has always been that way. If you've ever been involved in true marketing, sending out A/B tests and calculating, which ones are more successful, and then moving them into a process of selling, which has to become more of a consultative process, not consultative selling per se, but maybe more along the lines of the Challenger sale. If you remember Matthew Dixon's book, The Challenger Sale, getting in there and educating them on something. Well, what do they need education on? Security. They need to know what their impact likelihood charts looks like. So one of the programs that I've been out there doing really for years, and it's only growing, is called Mastering the Security Sale, and it's built on the House in the Cloud. It's about mastering the risk sale, understanding how impact likelihood works, how to get the attention of asset owners, the people who make the decisions, how to create undeniable justification, how to close regardless of budget because it's urgent, and then getting a 90% close rate on events and other things, on proposals and that sort of thing, and then converting to long-term business. But it can't be just managed services because managed services is a commodity. It's got to be managed security. And what that means is the impact likelihood chart, measuring, understanding impact, understanding likelihood, and bringing likelihood down to an acceptable level and maintaining it. That's what managed services is all about. And the conversion process is simply one of showing them that they actually have risk. So here's a simple flow chart that shows how we do that. And I'm going to use my event in Boston as an example. But again, it could be a webinar. It could be a one-on-one meeting. The only question is, what's your conversion rate? What's the easiest way to find somebody to listen to the message, give it to them, and convert them? So in this simple chart, which comes out of my program, you simply are putting together a message that's built for the audience you're going after. And, of course, I show you how to do that. We don't have time for that today. But assuming you have a message that really does compel somebody, putting it into an educational message, that's what Matthew Dixon in the Challenger sale is talking about. Although he doesn't give you the message because he's not talking to the security market or even the technology market. But building that message so that it's built to convert. Convert to what? Convert to something that gives us the ability to build the justification we need to move them on into project work, into some annuity service. And to me, that's an assessment. There's no better way to do it than that. And so actually I do a lot of coaching with people on their assessments. How many of your assessments convert to projects? If it's 10% or 20%, that's not good. If it's 80, 90%, it's good, right? And it should be good because there's always urgent issues. And how do we drive that through to a managed service? Well, I'm going to give you one of the concepts that I use to do this. Just one simple way that has gotten people, and again, I used this in my Boston meeting, and it's basically a 4-step process. I took them through this process when I was at the meeting, okay? I start out with 3 questions. Now, I didn't give them the 3 questions in the meeting necessarily, but we do it in the follow-up as we start to do the assessment. We use the 3 questions. And then we move into this thing, the house, the cloud, and the coverage model, which, of course, is what this book is all about. It's about the house, the cloud, and the coverage model. So in case you thought it was about cloud technology, it's not. It's actually about an analogy that I use that uses 3 questions, the house, the cloud, and a coverage model. So let me just take you through that very quickly. The 3 questions are simple questions that I use whether I'm prospecting or involved in an assessment, whether I'm talking to a technical person or an executive. But I usually start with an executive, and what I want to know is, what do you want to protect? So when I was in my meeting in Boston doing my keynote, the first thing I brought about was the kind of data that people are after, what they want. If I were in a assessment meeting with them, which is the next step, I'd be asking them, what do you need to protect? And of course, I've used this many times. I was in a small bank, and I talk about the story in my book, where when I asked that question of the EVP, it was like the trust, the relationship between the company and the client out there, the customer, and them trusting using online services. That's what he was trying to protect, not disk, not data, but that relationship. And of course, that usually translates into some application. Secondly, I asked them, well, what are the relevant threats? Who would really want this stuff? You know, is it contractors? Is it people in China or Russia or North Korea? Is it people internally? Is it your competition? You know, who wants this stuff? And I engaged them on that level. And then third, I want to know, how comfortable are you with your ability to detect and respond? Now, I want to show you something interesting, back to the impact likelihood graph, of what I'm actually doing here. I'm building the graph. I am asking question 1, which is, what things impact the business? What are you trying to protect? What are the key applications? Question 2, what's the likelihood that they will be compromised? I'm asking, well, what are the threats that would push us up the y-axis? And once we know those things, how comfortable are you that you would detect it before it was too late? And once I understand how they view this graph, let's say they think that there's not a high likelihood, now I know my job is to educate them, to get them thinking it's much higher than it is, because it is high. If they already are thinking it's pretty high, or they don't know, then my job is to show them why it is high and help them keep the confidence that it is high, but then go out and gather the data to show them that it is in fact as high or higher than they thought it was. And this is what creates justification. 3 simple questions to build the impact likelihood graph, and then some analysis to figure it out. Now, in the meeting, I need to convince them to want to do that with me. And of course, I was working with a reseller, not me, so I was just speaking. But I'm with a reseller, and they're looking for new logo business like everybody else is. So we invited 20 CIOs that they've never done business with before in their lives to this meeting. And I showed them the impact likelihood graph, went through some of the trends out there that would create a problem on that graph, and then I showed them this picture right here, the house. And I asked them a simple question, how do you protect the house? In other words, how does security work? How do you know if something's secure? How do you know if your home's secure tonight? You know, if you're going on vacation, you're away, or you're sleeping at night, how do you know? And so we started to go through some of the things that people put around their house to make it secure. And of course, I go through this in the book: doors, windows, lock, fence. These are all the things that you would think about, right? Maybe you have a gun, maybe you have an insurance policy, crime watch, alarms. These 12 things are always mentioned. But then I made the point in the meeting that while we think these things secure us, they don't. And at that point, you know, people start to wonder, well, what is it then that actually does secure us? It's actually a system comprised of 3 columns. There's a protection. That keeps people out. There's a detection. Those are your alarms and so forth. And then there's a response. And the whole thing is timed. You can have all these components and still be totally unsecure. However, if you have these components and you have the right ones and you have it timed in sequence properly, if somebody breaks in and it gets detected in a timely fashion and there's a response plan that stops it immediately, security happens. And all security works like this. I don't care if it's a bank, if it's a prison, if it's, you know, some military compound, or your home, or your business. It doesn't matter. Security works like this, and this is how it works all the time. Now, the question is, which one of these columns, and all 3 are needed, all 3 must be timed, but one of them is most important. And so I asked the group, which one is most important? And I wonder which one, if we could all raise hands, perhaps we would take a poll here, but we're not going to take a poll. I usually start here. Is it response? Is it detection? Is it protection? A lot of times I got a split, 30% across, 33% across each column. A lot of times I may get a lot of protect people. But the truth is, it is detection, and rarely do I get very many detection people. Detection is the one, though. because protection always fails. Look at your home. Look how easy it is to break into a house. It's only the fear of being caught, the neighbors seeing it or hearing it, or a dog outside barking, or you being inside and hearing. And in fact, if you did hear a noise in the middle of the night, you wouldn't turn to your spouse in bed and say, well, don't worry about it, the door is locked. Because you and I know that that is child's play for a true criminal. We'd be jumping out of bed, we'd be listening, trying to detect what's actually going on, and then we would draw on whatever response plan we have in place. And some of us would be going, uh-oh, I don't actually have a response plan. And we'd be like waiting for the police to show up. And maybe we have young kids in the house, I have young kids in the house, and you're wondering, what do we do? Or maybe the father's out of town and the mom's at home. We've had that situation too, and she's wondering what to do. What do I do? You got to have all three in place, but detection is the key one. It's the one that finds the person. And this is a problem in IT, because in IT, that's not what's happening. In IT, what's happening is people have built 80%, according to Gartner Group, 80% of the security is built on the protection column. And what that's led to is a tremendous number of breaches. And it takes actually 14 months on average, according to the Wall Street Journal, according to the FBI, to actually detect. And in fact, in one of my forums, I interviewed a guy on identity theft, John Cilio. He's a nationwide expert on CNN and all kinds of stuff. I interviewed him, and I asked him about this, and he said small businesses are 60% of the ID theft out there, and 50% of those companies will go out of business once they announce to the public that they've been breached. 50%. And it happens pretty rapidly. There's a huge, huge need out there, and it's a big, big deal. But security must be built like this: protection, detection, response, administrative, technical, physical. Now, here is the beauty of it. This is the piece I don't want you to miss, and I'm almost done here, but I don't want you to miss this. My goal is to get to a point of conversion. I'm trying to convert that person to see the risk so that I can help them put in some things that will, and this is product, right? This is project, put in some things that will mitigate the risk, will bring that risk down. But in order to maintain it, I have to watch it. I have to put this detection thing in place. Now, watching someone's firewall is not a detection strategy, and you probably know that already. So this is why I got involved with Aegify. You've got to have technology out there that is constantly watching. If you don't have constant assessment, constant visualization into the organization, the ability to bring alerts to them, if you don't have all that stuff going on, then you can't truly have a detection. And the truth is, small business and middle and medium-sized businesses cannot afford to put a detection system in place. That's why they don't have one. They can buy a firewall, they can buy antivirus software, although some of the assessments that come across my desk say no antivirus software still. It's kind of crazy. But you can put all that stuff in place, but if you're not detecting, then exactly what happened to Target, what happened to TJ Maxx a long time ago, what happened to JP Morgan, all that stuff was done with malware coming in through things like email, through the HVA system, through whatever system it came through. And what happened? It wasn't detected. And it's because those companies either didn't have the right technology up and running in place, or somebody wasn't watching the right technology, and so it went unnoticed. And so therefore there was no response plan. This is what's needed. It's the impact likelihood graph. So I'm going to turn it back over to Anupam and to talk a little bit about what Aegify provides. But this concept right here can totally transform a business, any reseller business out there that is struggling with the commoditization of product and basic managed services, simply by adding security managed services and then getting a process together that drives through from meeting new clients, meeting new prospects, and putting a conversion strategy in place that has a high conversion rate. So let me turn it back over to Anupam. And I believe actually you're going to put a link out there where they can actually access this training program if they want to.
Yeah, thank you, Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me, so thank you very much. So the key message here is that while you're selling security, it's important to have a complete solution that has elements of protect, detect, and respond in the entire framework that customers need to be successful. So any comprehensive security program or a mature security program or any compliance program typically will have elements of protect, detect, and respond. And so the question that we have been asking for and looking at from market research data is that the reason why the security programs are falling short are because of some of these reasons. One is that there's a lot of confusion about what should I invest in, what will get me secure to become secure, and is it putting firewalls, does it make me secure, or putting intrusion detection systems, does it make me secure? Should I invest in an alarm for physical protection? So the answer, as David was saying, is to have a combination of technologies that span the gamut of protect, detect, and respond, and also to handle both the physical requirements and the internet-based attack requirements, and we'll talk about that. So the reason why some of the security programs are falling short is because there are no integrated tools today that does support the entire three-phased approach to security. And there are point solutions that do part of protect, part of detect, and part of respond, and they don't combine or create a single framework or a single dashboard view for all these different siloed applications that need to work together. And so there's a lot of confusion in the market, and of course a lot of this is also due to governance-related issues or management-related issues where these tools are not being configured properly and not being used properly. And so you see, if you look at the huge amount of attacks, and these attacks are growing, by the way, at a huge rate, roughly about 100% year-over-year growth, which is not a good number to read. And based on analysis of these attacks that have happened, it has been shown that most of these attacks are exploiting patterns that can easily be detected and prevented. And in fact, 97% of these attacks can be prevented with very simple security controls. So it's lack of education, lack of awareness, and lack of tools that provide you with a complete holistic view. And that's where Aegify comes into play, where Aegify is a cloud-based subscription solution that deals with all aspects of security, risk, and compliance management. And we provide a complete 360-degree view into threats, vulnerabilities, assessments, scanning of security, assets, risk assessments. Everything is included in here. So if as an organization you're trying to be compliant with any regulations, we can take care of that. There's a security scanning tool available and built into the framework that allows you to scan and detect any vulnerabilities and fix them. And then, of course, make sure that you're focusing on the right issues by looking at threats, vulnerabilities, and the likelihood impact graph that David was talking about. So risk management is fundamentally the pivot in which you are looking at all compliance issues, all security issues, and you're integrating and creating a holistic view that allows you to minimize your risk exposure and thereby minimizing your impact and the likelihood criteria that comes out of it. So it's a single application that takes care of all of your security needs, the entire life cycle of protect, detect, and respond, which starts with assessments, scanning, fixing the problem, and continuous monitoring. So security and compliance is a journey. It's not a point in time, and there is a need to continuously stay on top of any changes that happen. Changes could be because of new employees coming into the organization, new assets coming in, new laptops, new devices coming in, or new threats and vulnerabilities being discovered, which typically happen on a weekly basis. So things are evolving very fast. So it's important not to do an assessment or put a solution in place and then forget about it. There's a need to continuously monitor to ensure that all your security issues and risk and compliance issues are being monitored. So what we have built is a single application that does it all. Instead of buying multiple applications from different vendors that do not talk to each other, that do not give you a single pane view, and we have built an expert system with all these applications that are integrated so that you have a single pane view of all of your applications and all of the issues concerning security risk and compliance management, and you can use this to offer managed services to your customers. So it's a complete managed services platform. It's a turnkey solution that your customers can then use and work with channel partners like yourself to manage the entire process of the security risk and compliance requirements. I want to spend a few seconds on the cycle. I talked about the tool supports the protect, detect, and respond life cycle, and we have a phased approach to doing the assessment, doing the remediation to fix the problems, and then continuously monitoring by repeating the assessment remediation life cycle to ensure that if changes do happen, you have complete visibility into what's going on and how to fix the problems if they show up. There are multiple reports that you can generate along with the real-time dashboard that gives you in real time your current posture for security risk and compliance management. So this is the picture that David was talking about, where in a physical facility environment or in the home environment where you need a combination of protect, detect, and respond. But as you bring businesses on the internet, which is pretty much anybody with an internet connection, you bring in a new set of requirements to detect and to protect, detect, and respond to internet-based attacks. And so there's a need to have a set of technical safeguards that allows you to protect the environment from cyber attackers. And the administrative safeguards are really policy-based requirements that drive the technical and physical safeguards and how they are implemented and monitored. So the need for a comprehensive security program is something that both David and I would like to reinforce. It's important to have a combination of protect, detect, and respond technologies, and they should be integrated and interoperable, and for a comprehensive framework, all of these components are required. And that's where, that's where Aegify provides a comprehensive framework with technologies that provide each of these 9 components. So depending on the compliance frameworks, some of these administrative, technical, and physical safeguards might already be in place, but otherwise you can pick and choose control frameworks that and the security scanning tools that help you develop and maintain a comprehensive security program. Now, there's also confusion about, if I'm compliant, am I secure? Or if I'm secure, does it mean I'm compliant? The answer is no in both the cases. And really compliance, one way to think about compliance is that it's a security program with best practices of the day when the compliance program was enacted to protect a critical asset. And in the case of GLBA, it is protection of the financial information. In the case of HIPAA, it's really designed to protect PHI, the critical health information. And so compliance programs are really security programs designed to protect a certain critical asset. Now, as a small, medium business, that might be the complete list of critical assets that you have. But in a medium to large size business, typically there are multiple regulations that they need to support. There are multiple critical assets that they need to support. So there is a need to have a comprehensive security program over and beyond the compliance program that they need to implement. So what Aegify does is to address the market needs for developing a complete comprehensive solution for all of security risk and compliance needs. We have built an expert system that integrates the different mechanisms, the protect, detect, and respond mechanisms required to provide a complete framework. And this is all delivered through the cloud. There's no hardware appliance needed, and you can pay as you grow. You can add services, add locations, and offer managed services around the platform. I want to give you a quick glimpse of what the solution looks like before we wrap this up and open it up for questions. So this is what the dashboard looks like. It gives you your current status from a security and compliance and risk perspective in real time. And you can download a free community edition if you want to play around with this. You can get it from aegify.com/community edition. We support the complete risk management model where David talked about likelihood and impact being a key determinant for the overall risk score. And we have an automated framework that allows you to look at the organization's readiness or the risk exposure by doing a risk assessment through an automated framework. And I don't want to go through this, but basically suffice it to say that we've taken and built an automated system to manage risk, to illustrate the value of what are the common controls missing, and you can do analysis from a risk assessment and risk sensitivity analysis to figure out which assets are mostly impacted, what's the impact rating of each asset, and then you can play around with the controls that need to be in place to prevent such critical assets from being compromised. So what we have done in Aegify is to really relieve the burden of dealing with how to assess and make sure that your risk exposure is minimal, and then continuously monitor through a combination of protect, detect, and respond technologies to make it possible for organizations to implement a comprehensive security program with minimal effort. So let me spend a few minutes talking about the partnership with David Stelzl. Aegify and David Stelzl are partnering together, where we are making David's sales program available to all the Aegify partners. So if you're an existing partner, you're already aware of it, but if you want to become a partner, you're welcome to become a partner, and I'll give you a link that you can find on our website that allows you to submit your request. But basically, Aegify partners get to buy David's program, which is a 3-month program, and there's some additional coaching that he does to help build and position a security sales program by training your sales folks, and you can benefit from this partnership that we have put together. If you're interested in becoming a partner of Aegify, as I said, you can go to the website and aegify.com, become a partner, or go under partners menu and you'll find become a partner sub-menu out there. And as I said, this allows you to offer managed services. Managed services could be around security, risk, or compliance, and it allows you to provide a complete managed services platform, which allows you to manage your customers, to create, provision, and monitor your customers end-to-end. And you can work with your customers to help them manage the entire security process. So you have a collaboration tool using Aegify that allows you to offer these managed services. If you're interested in knowing more, you can send an email to sales@aegify.com, and as I said, you can download a community edition to play around with this, or send an email. So let me stop here and see whether there are any questions. Please type in your questions under the questions toolbar on GoToWebinar. So I have a question for you, David here. So can you describe your program a little bit more in terms of what's the process that people would undertake when they sign on for your program?
Yes. So we said it's 3 months long. What that means is I used to do 2-day workshops, and so people would come to those workshops, and what I'm taking them through is, how to take the risk message, how to access the right kinds of people, how to build justification. We talk about how to build assessments, how to use those assessments to convert into project and remediation work, and how to drive that through to managed services work. So it's all about building the messaging, building the proposals, the presentations, the assessments, and everything, and moving that thing forward in really any risk-based security sale. and that can lead into all kinds of sales. The format is, over the 3 months, is basically a self-paced kind of program where when you sign up, you are fed these modules each week, and you have access to those modules through the entire 3 months as they come out. So you can always go back to older ones. And what those are is they're pre-recorded, so they're videos, several videos in a given module that you can watch. The base program is about 30 minutes for that week. But then there are supplemental videos on various topics that you might be interested in that allow you to dive deeper into stuff if you want to. It also comes with a field guide. And then there is interaction with me through an online forum program that's on that website, it's a private membership site, where you can ask questions, you can provide some of the assignments back to me, your messaging and so forth, and we can work on deals that you're working on as well. And then finally, there is a coaching process, one-on-one, which we do once a month. So every 4 weeks, we have a one-on-one coaching call, lasts about 45 minutes, and that's where we can really dive into specific things you're working on. You're trying to get new clients, you're trying to get further into some clients, maybe you have a big client you're trying to really build out. We can talk about all those things and build strategies to go and do that. And I do want to mention that by buying it through Aegify, you also get the Insider Circle, which is a $49 program, and it just comes free with this when you buy it through Aegify. And what that is I mentioned I interviewed John Cilio last week. Every month I interview an expert in some area that has to do with selling and driving the security market. And it's an expert, an author, somebody who has been very successful in some area of technology sales related to security. And so that group can attend those sessions. So this is a kind of an add-on to the security training program itself. So hopefully that gives you a feel. Certainly can answer any more detailed questions if anybody has any.
Sure. So we have time for probably one more question. So somebody asked about how to become a partner. So I have this information shared with you, and we will send out a webinar recording. But you can go to aegify.com and become a partner, or send email to sales@aegify.com to learn more. If you just want to kick the tires and download the community edition, you can do that from aegify.com/community, or just drop an email and we'll set up a demo for you. Either way, we would love to hear back from you. So any closing thoughts, David, from you before we wrap it up?
No, I just would encourage people to look into these things, because as this industry commoditizes, however you do it, every reseller has to get involved in the managed side of security, the predictive analysis, and the kinds of things that we're talking about here today.
Yep, I totally agree. And so you need to have an effective sales program to sell security. Dave talked about that. And if you need a solution that can enable you to offer managed security services to your customers, I would urge you to look at Aegify as a vehicle of doing that. And again, thank you very much for joining the session today. If you have any questions or comments, please send it our way. We'll be sending out the webinar recording in a few days. I would say a couple of days, since we're hitting Friday tomorrow, maybe early next week, you should have it in your inbox. Thank you again for coming, and have a great day.